Hey guys, Nadine from Colin Campbell Chemicals here. This is another video I did before GIS last year with Scott McElroy. We were driving, I had the honour to head to the university, Auburn University, and I drove, well actually I didn't drive, Scott drove me up from Auburn up to Atlanta Airport where we made our way to San Antonio. But this is a conversation we had in the car on the way up there. It was a good half-hour chat. We cover a whole heap of different topics with regards to weed management and the likes like that. Very raw, very open, just pretty much had the phone on the dashboard and yeah, had a good chat. So hope it comes out well. Again, hit me up on Facebook, Colin Campbell Chemicals, or comments here on YouTube or through Twitter, Campbell Turf. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me or look at our website, contact me directly. All right, guys, hope you enjoy.
Hello everyone, welcome to Comedians in Cars Turf Style. I'm Nadeem Zrykat from Colin Campbell Chemicals in Australia, and just driving up to Atlanta here with Professor Scott McElroy from Auburn University, a good personal friend of mine. I've spent a couple of days at Auburn. We went to a college basketball game last night to see Auburn versus Vanderbilt, and Auburn essentially thrashed them. It was a great college experience for me, my first ever college basketball game, so I really enjoyed that. Yeah, so I'm just here with Scott, and we're just going to have a quick chat in regards to all things turf, but mainly concentrate on weeds and herbicides and the like. So hopefully you guys enjoy this. Scott, welcome, and thank you for the ride.
Thanks. I'm not going to look at the camera. I'm going to look straight ahead.
No, that's right.
10 and 2. 10 and 2.
Keep right on the road. So just to give you an idea, we're now on the interstate heading straight from Auburn to Atlanta. It's Sunday, the 4th of February. It's a little bit cool outside, 42 degrees Fahrenheit, so that makes it about 10 degrees Celsius. There has been a few bit of shower activity around as well, but as you said, Scott, it's been a little bit dry around the area as well.
Yeah, around here it has been, normally we get a lot of rain during the winter, but this year's been quite cold, so because of that, it's kind of pushed a lot of the moisture further south, so we're starting to get a little rain today, thank goodness, but
we'll see. All right, good. All right, well, one of the things we were just discussing just before we started recording this was in terms of pre-emergent herbicides. They're used very widely across the US and of course in Australia as well. So one of the things is I've come across my travels, I talked to a lot of turf managers about different things, and one of the things we don't have in our range is a pre-emergent herbicide. However, it's one of those things that I am definitely interested in, and you do see failures of them, pre-emergent herbicides, and Scott, you would see it quite a bit as well. What do you think people make most common mistakes with pre-emergent herbicides?
Most common mistakes, one thing you want to do, and I want to try to talk about this at the Australasia Turf Conference, is to talk about timing of application and making sure they're getting the applications out at the correct timing. And the second thing is probably expecting a little too much as far as duration of control is concerned. So a lot of people are going to expect that, they're going to get 6 months of control or 4 months of control depending on their area. And that can be just variable by year, because if you have a situation where, let's say you do have a lot of rain, some of these herbicides are more degraded in anaerobic conditions, and so they may be degraded in those conditions, as well as if you're running into some of them are volatile. If it's too hot and dry, and you may get loss in volatility in that way. So I think it's just some of the common mistakes is not really understanding the environmental fate of what can go on with some of these. And also understanding, just when your weed target is actually germinating, making sure you're getting those applications out prior to, and it's lasting through that time period.
Is it worth putting a post-emergent herbicide with the pre-emergent in saying that?
Typically, I'm going to say no if it's timed correctly, but we'll do sequential applications here, or well, at least I'll promote sequential applications, and I'm hoping people are doing them. But what we'll do is, let's say, for us, the typical crabgrass digitaria germination is going to be, let's say around this area, around March 15th. So we typically want to get those pre-emergent applications out in late February, and around by March 1. So as long as you're getting that application out, but what we do is we'll follow it up with a second application 8 to 10 weeks later, and in that, or around May 1st, so getting into the heart of spring during that time point. So we'll put another application out in order to control anything else, and typically we'll put out a post-emergent herbicide at that time along with it. So in order to capture anything that we may have missed, or anything in case our first application degraded a little too fast, something along those lines.
Do you say putting those two sequential applications out around 8 weeks, are you seeing any sort of root pruning effect? Is a root pruning effect enough to affect the turf at all? Or because obviously they all do it in some respect, but as a turf quality point of view, is it seen?
Not in Bermuda grass or couch. I always thought it was couch grass.
Couch grass, yeah. But it does sound like that.
Yeah. So, but not in Bermuda. But you can see it in things like St. Augustine, Buffalo, as it's called, and of course we have centipede grass as well. Things that are just predominantly, you got stoloniferous grasses, but the rhizomatous grasses like Bermuda, unless you've, well, I'll just leave it at that. I mean, very, very rarely do you see any root pruning in those cases.
Yeah.
So.
Right. No worries. And with the pre-emergent herbicides, you would recommend definitely mixing up the different product options. Like I was just saying to you before, we have Arizolan, which is embargo, prodiamine, barricade, and indaziflam, which is spectacle, as well as dithiopyr, dimension. Is it worth mixing between them or utilizing them at different times of the year, would you say?
Yeah, so here I recommend going out with a...
Oh, sorry, and metallochlor as well we have.
Metallochlor, yeah. So, we walk through all those. Indaziflam really does well for POA control. That's where you really want to use indaziflam, is for POA control in the fall. And what I typically say is it's always better to mix modes of action than it is to rotate modes of action. So what you would want to do is do an application of indaziflam followed by a secondary application of indaziflam into the winter with probably an SU herbicide at that point in time. Something like an SU, or if you're completely dormant, make another application with like Roundup. And that way you got two modes of action out. But that's where I'd really use indaziflam, is for POA control. And indaziflam, there's no inherent, it's not inherently better than all those other herbicides for crabgrass control or the goosegrass control. What's goosegrass?
Crowsfoot grass.
Crowsfoot
and crabgrass is summergrass.
Summergrass, okay. So for those two, so they know what we're talking about.
Yes.
For those two, there's no inherent benefit. Now, indaziflam is really good for the goosegrass or crowsfoot grass. But if you have those situations, I would say, okay, you probably need to mix in some indaziflam for the spring application for the summergrass and crabgrass. But really where it shines is for POA control. Now, having said that, if you go to the spring applications, what I like is like a barricade starting off and then a dimension follow application, because dimension has post-emergence activity on the camera moved.
We went over a bump.
Yeah. Oh no!
Oh, that's all right. Our coffee spilled.
Yeah.
It's all good.
So it has post-emergence activity on the crabgrass. So that kind of combination in the spring works really well. We've used Arizolan. Arizolan's kind of fallen out of favor here because it's so volatile that it's that you've really got to make sure you get it incorporated and you maintain a lot of moisture, whereas Barricade doesn't have the volatility issues. And if you look at the metolachlor, you do not need to put on Bermuda grass during a green up period. Okay, changing lanes while talking. So you do not need to put that on during a green up period. It's really more, we use it now for, you can put it out getting later into the spring, early summer to get control of some sedges, pre-emerge, to get to, we have something called doveweed, which is kind of an iris type thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure about if we've got anything similar to doveweed.
Yeah, so it's become a real big problem. But it and dimethenamide, which is also in similar class, we're using for that type of control, because you don't need to put those out during green up very early on. You need to make sure the Bermuda is up and primed and ready to go.
Yeah, okay. Food for thought there. So that's some good information out there as well. And you've seen have you seen any resistance to pre-emergent herbicides out there? Is it a common thing at the moment, or is it's something that'll grow in the near future?
It's very common when it comes to POA annual control. POA control with pre-emergent herbicides, lots of resistance to barricade, to prodiamine, to some to dimension, and oryzalin as well. Of course, we've got pendimethalin as well. We have resistance to that, so you see that's very common. Not so much. We see resistance to those to goosegrass as well, the crowsfoot grass, and also. But when you look at indaziflam, no resistance as of yet. So make sure you're mixing in another mode of action there to handle that, and not a lot to crabgrass either. It's really amazing. No real crabgrass resistance for some reason.
Is there any cross resistance between, because obviously barricade, dimension, oryzalin, embargo, which is embargo, is all in the same mode of action,
right.
Same group. Is there cross resistance between the actives, or?
There is some cross between, a little bit of cross between barricade and oryzalin and dimension, but not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we've only seen one population with cross resistance. They're different binding sites, so even though they're kind of the same mode of action, they're different enough that you don't get a lot of cross resistance.
Yeah, okay, so you can easily keep on mixing them up and just really delay as much as possible the resistance there, and hopefully some new chemistries come on the market besides indaziflam. I know a few people in Australia have used it. It isn't the cheapest, but yeah, it has been working well for some people. But as Scott said, yeah, definitely with POA. POA is always the hard one, especially for guys. I know if you're listening to this in Victoria, how difficult POA is to control, and hopefully when the New Zealand conference, the Australasian conference comes around, please come and see Scott's talks. He's got quite a few on there. All the information's through the AGCSA website, and Scott's going to be having some good talks there, and he'll be around as well, the show and the like. So by all means, hit him up, have a chat to him. Please do. All right, Scott. Well, thank you very much for the coffee and car ride. We just got to go grab a coffee now from the airport. We're not too far from Atlanta Airport, heading to San Antonio. But I'll be doing a few more of these as we go along the week. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and take care.